Following is the second part of a presentation on photo locations in the Derwent Water area of the Lake District. Why not watch and see if you can discover new locations to go and capture images. Well, good evening, and this time I'm showing the second half of the presentation about photo locations in the area of Derwent Water and also Keswick. And if you haven't already seen the video, I will put up, and I'll get it right, I'll put up a link in the video up there to the first half and also in the description below. But yeah, this was a presentation that I did to the 617 Club, and then subsequently I've recorded it on the computer, and it's quite a long one. That's why I've divided it into two parts. So this is the second part. Hopefully you find it informative and enjoyable. But we're now going to come back down the eastern edge of the lake, but at a higher level, at the sort of first bank of hills that you come to. And we're going to start there at Castlerigg, which is just a small hill, not quite in Keswick, just on the outskirts, and it's probably about a 5-minute walk for me from home. Many times we've been up with the children, grandchildren, and there you get a view looking up the lake, because again you can see Castlerigg and the mountains behind. Yep. I'll turn the other way and you can get a nice view over Keswick with the fading sun. So that's I forgot this one. A view across the lake. This is looking right across the lake with the long lens. In the centre of the image you can see the winding road that goes to Newland Halls, and you've got Moss Force, the waterfall, to the left of that. But there was just some light that caught my eye, took out the long lens and got that image. And then I went up there when we had the Festival of Light to try and capture an image of the headlight procession. So that's Castlerigg, and next we're going to go to Walla Crag. As you can see, we've got the yellow pin there of Walla Crag. And again, I'm assuming this is a panorama I've taken of stitched images, and you've got Derwent Water there, again fairly calm with reflections of the cloud. Off to the far right you've got Tewet Lake. And just to give you some idea, when you stood here, if you walk backwards or were to turn round, the hill gently drops away, whereas if you do go forward you come to a sheer drop. It is a place where there is heather as well, so this is a recent image when I went up and got the image with some heather overlooking the lake, and as you can see at the top right you can see Tewet Lake. And if we were to start to walk to Ashness Bridge, which we'll come to shortly, there is this scene, and I just call it the lone tree of Walla Crag. It's not an image that I've seen anywhere else, anybody else taking, and I think this is possibly my best image. I was up there recently, and the tree's not doing so well. That one looks all right. The tree's looking a bit more bedraggled, and when I went up recently thinking it'd be in full leaf, there was very few leaves on it at all, so whether the tree's on the way out. But it's just a nice little scene as you leave Walla Crag heading towards Ashness Bridge. But before we get down to Ashness Bridge, we've got a yellow pin there, and that is Falcon Crag. If you're going to go there, it's just off the path to Ashness Bridge, but you need to come off the path, go to Falcon Crag, and then turn around and come back on to the path. And that's an image from there with a bit of an inversion that was starting to fade away. And there we've got a drone image of Falcon Crag, and you get a lot better view of Keswick and of Skidder than you do on Walla Crag. Walla Crag is off to your right, slightly higher, but Falcon Crag, you get some great views from there. So as I said, next we're going to head to Ashness Bridge. Again, another iconic location, but keeping my eyes open one time walking there, saw this, the shards of light coming down onto Castlerigg and the higher fells around, and just couldn't resist taking the images. The images are all around, you've just got to keep your eyes open. And here we have one of my earlier images of Ashness Bridge with Skidder behind and Derwent Water, and yeah, it's alright, possibly a bit close to the bridge, but on this particular occasion I did drop down lakeside of the bridge, downstream of the bridge, and trying to capture the colour in the sky, and I quite like this image, one of my favourite images of Ashness Bridge. But again, we have the iconic view and some snow on the top of Skidder, and again possibly a bit close to the bridge. A summer one, and I don't particularly like this image, it's all a very bit green. We could do with more colours. Here again we have an autumn, possibly winter image. Shame about the cloud on Skidder. This to me is a better one, maybe a bit too much light on the water. I keep thinking eventually I'll get an image that I'm really proud of, but I keep going back, and they do say look behind you and there's those cascades behind you, or possibly slightly longer exposure. And there's another one, a bit of snow on Skidder. We've got the long exposure on the back there, and yeah, it's a nice image, but one day I'll get a better image. So from Ashness Bridge we're going into the Ashness area and to Ashness Wood. You can park here where the yellow pin is, and on the edge of the wood, and you're parking at surprise view, and that is surprise view. You just see all the trees, and then there's this bit of a gap where you can look down. You can see Derwent Water and Skidder beyond, here with snow on the top, or frost, and you just need to be careful because it is a sheer drop from the edge there, and I think not too long ago somebody slipped, fell and was killed, so just to be borne in mind. And if you're into woodland photography, there is some nice images to be had, I believe, in Ashness Wood. It's not my strong point, woodland photography, but I came across this oak tree which I quite like, and this is an autumn picture, and then went back in spring, same tree, and different perspective, and very green. This one I like to call Dead Amongst the Living. We've got this dead tree and all the living ones around, and then a bit of just a woodland scene. And then this is on the edge of the wood. On this occasion I was turning back to go back to the van, parked at Surprise View, but if you carry along on this footpath you come to our next location, which you can see there, the yellow pin there, and that is Watendlath. Again, a place where I haven't got what I would call the perfect image, but it's quite a good image. You've got the tarn there, you've got the small hamlet of Watendlath off to the left, and you've got reflections on the tarn. I think this is probably a summer image. It might be worth trying to go sometime in the autumn and get an autumn image from this point of view with more colour, etc. And then a view of the beck, Watendlath beck, coming out of the tarn under the bridge, and that's quite, yeah, it's well worth a visit, and it's a nice area for walking, and one area you can walk to, where I've got the pin right down at the bottom, there is Doat Tarn. And as I've already said, whenever you're walking, keep your eyes open. You never know what you'll see. And there was just this scene on one of the streams, top to bottom. It's only probably 2 to 3 foot. I just saw it and thought, yeah, such a nice, quaint lakeland scene. So, but that brings us to Doat Tarn, which is not the most photogenic. I think you've got to get there in the right weather conditions at the right time of year. This one, late autumn into winter, strongish winds. But I went there recently and it was quite sunny, and I got a drone picture looking down on the lilies at Doat Tarn, and then the heather was possibly just past its best, but you've got the heather there, an island in the lake. So that was Doat Tarn. And from there we're going to go even slightly further east to a place many people will have heard of, and that is Castlerigg Stone Circle, which is up there where the yellow pin is. It's a place I struggle with. We've got a reasonable image of the whole circle there. Now obviously you can tell this is a drone image. The problem I have with the stone circle is you think, I need to go further back to fit it all in, and as you go back you're actually going down slightly because it's on a bit of a mound, and then you're looking up to it and that. So I think it's one of these where you've got to incorporate the stones into a wider image. So we've got one there, we've got one of the stones in the foreground. You can see in the midground there's the stones the other side of the circle, and we've got the sun setting behind Causey Pike. And again, a couple of the stones, and I like to call this one the approaching storm. I think all these images for the same night. We've got there's a bit of a lull, and we've got light on Skidder and Long Scale Fell with a couple of the stones there, and then the light really kicked off as we've got the sun going behind. That'll be Grisdale Pike, and we've got some of the stones, and then just the colour, a couple of the stones and the light. So it is possible to get nice images, but when you get an image of the full circle, this particular image just does nothing for me. Nor does this, where we've got a bit of light, we've got shadows. So it's maybe to see what else is around. We've got the two lambs and the moon there, a starburst as the sun is going down behind this particular stone, or a moody sky with Blencathra and some of the stones. So yeah, so that's Castlerigg Stone Circle. And just a bit east of here, to get from one to the other, really, you can walk, or you'd be walking along the road, or you drive along the road, and then you can walk just off the road a bit to Tewet Tarn. A tarn, what I'd like to say, of many faces. This is one of my earlier images, right down on the banks of the tarn, if not actually in the tarn, and we've got the reeds. Unfortunately, it's slightly choppy water, and Blencathra behind. And often when I go, my go-to position now is this, coming up past the tarn to these few rocks which give a good foreground. Midground we've got the tarn, and then we've got the setting sun just catching Blencathra as it goes down. I don't know whether you can see to the left there's a wall. If we go to the other side of the wall, we get a slightly different perspective. On this occasion, when the grass is this sort of green, the algae on the wall, etc. The wall doesn't, you can see it, but it doesn't necessarily stand out. And we've got, again, Blencathra at the back. Sometimes I've been there and it's been very calm, and a nice reflection of a sky with lots of definition in it, or with a long exposure. A bit later on there was some colour in the sky, and I like it even better with the long exposure reflected in the tarn. It's a location for all seasons, and here we've got the snow, and as I say, go the other side of the wall, we get a different perspective. And because everything is white, the bits of the wall you can see, the wall does stand out a bit more. But obviously there's cloud and snow in the sky, so we can't see Blencathra that good. But yeah, it's an interesting image. Or there's always the dark and moody. And then from here we're just going to go south to an area called Low Rigg. And we're going to go to the east side of Low Rigg, where there is this wonderful tree. Here we've got a very wintry shot, no leaves at all. Not the easiest image to take. You can see it's on quite a steep bank and you're needing to get quite low to make sure that the tree is in the sky. Again, another one. We've got probably summer because it's very green. We've got a long exposure to show some movement, some colour in the sky. And then again in winter, we've got this image and then a slightly different perspective, zoomed in slightly. But yeah, no, it's well worth a visit, the tree. And then another one with a bit of light in the midground, and then one where we've got light in the foreground as well. And you can see there is Tewet Tarn, so that gives you some idea of where it is in relation to Tewet Tarn, with Blencathra behind. And from there we can go from Low Rigg to High Rigg. And as we head to High Rigg, we go past this quaint little, parish church of St John in the Vale. Still an active church. Not quite sure whether it has weekly services, certainly has regular services. And we go behind there, up onto High Rigg, which is not a particular stunning fell, but you do get some brilliant views from there. This is looking south to Thirlmere, the reservoir, and if we were to go, the sort of centre bit is towards Dunmail Raise, and beyond there is Grasmere, etc. Or when you've got the snow, it just highlights the ruggedness of the fells there. So we're looking down into St John's Vale, St John in the Vale there, or looking back to Blencathra with the sunlight playing on the snow-covered mountain. So that's High Rigg. And now we're going to sort of go down Borrowdale, which is south of Derwent Water. We've got the yellow pin there, and an area of Grange Fell, stroke King's How, Grange Crags, so which is a sort of wooded area, but you can park at what we call the Bowderstone car park, and there's the Bowderstone. It's this huge rock that is sitting on its edge. An interesting rock. There's the steps so you can go up onto the top. Beware, it is very smooth. The number of people that have been up have worn the rock very smooth on the top. So that's the Bowderstone. You sometimes see people bouldering on it, trying to climb and cling on. If you look underneath, there's probably lots of chalk mark where people have got chalk on the hands to try and do that. But round here, I was there the other day. This is, I suppose, more Grange Crag, this one, and we've just got this tree, and then behind we've got Castlerigg. Here we've got a drone image of the colour in the bracken and the trees. Some of them still quite green, others going to yellow, etc. This is on the edge of King's How. This is springtime, so we've got new green on the trees and looking to Rosthwaite, and the big mountain behind is Glaramara. And this is in Grange Crags. When I was there earlier this week, I need to go back again because the colour wasn't there. There wasn't that much water in the stream. But yeah, it's well worth a visit. And often you see images of, I think these are silver birches. When I went up, they were still very green. I will be going back in a couple of weeks' time, and hopefully it'll have started to turn, and we'll get some nice images. And from there, just slightly further down the valley, we come to Combe Gill. We're almost at the bottom of the valley where we'll be going off up to Honister if we're staying on the road, etc. But on Combe Gill there is an old watermill. I just want to say that when I first started taking images of this, it's a very nice place, but it was derelict, so there was no problems. A number of years ago the farmer did sell it. The people who now own it have done it up, and it is habitable. So I think my thought would be, if you go and there's people obviously there, you don't go and photograph it. You wouldn't people tramping around your house, would you? Last time I was there, I gave the actual building a fairly wide berth, but there was nobody there, so I did work my way around into the river. But they're given the right conditions. I like this image, but this one is even better. This is probably my favourite image of Combe Gill Mill, and then we've got another one, and then the long exposure. So now we're going to come slightly working our way back up the other side of Borrowdale Valley, and we've come to a place called Johnny Wood, which fairly recently I discovered this place, and it is classed as a temperate rainforest, which I didn't realise we had rainforests in this country, but apparently we do, and we certainly in this part of England have plenty of rain for that. So that's Johnny Wood. A common sign of temperate rainforest is the amount of moss and that's growing. So we've got this boulder covered in moss with the colour of the bracken, and I just felt it made quite a nice image. But one of the bits that really impresses me is this wall. You can see it from the bottom left, and it goes into the middle of the image, and then goes round and curls back to the left, and it's just a phenomenal. I've been there a number of times, and I just love that. And it's a place where you can get some quite nice, intimate images. And finally, just a general scene. I mean, this scene, this was sort of summertime. Might be nice to go back in the autumn, a scene like that, and try and capture some more of the colours that are there. And then just up above Johnny Wood, we get High Doat. It's an area that I have seen some quite nice images, and I need to explore a bit more. The only real image I've got is this. There's this tree, the bracken, and the reflection in the water with the high fells behind. But as we walk north from High Doat, we get this wonderful view. This is an autumn view. You can see the bracken's gone brown, the trees, some of them have changed, some of them are still green, of Castlerigg. All the other views you've seen have been from the other side, but this is a wonderful view and eventually in the far background we've got Skidder. And it's just amazing, and that takes us next to Castlerigg. Castlerigg I go to normally since 2018. I've been there and gone. They do have an act of remembrance on Remembrance Sunday because there is a war memorial there. This footage was taken after the service on a particular year, and it is an area of a lot of old mine workings. If you go down and up the other side, going away from the road, there's these old mine workings that's looking up to the top of Castlerigg, and then we've got old mine workings. And who can resist framing an image like that? But between these mine workings and Castlerigg, there is a bit of a valley, and there is this wonderful tree that I discovered, and it just mirrors the shape of the valley. It's not so easy to take, and the camera is virtually on the ground here. You've got to get really low to get the branches in the sky rather than intersecting into the sides of the valley. But to me it makes a wonderful image, and we've got various variants. One, obviously I've come here when it's not November because we've got leaves on the tree. There's that one, and then this is my favourite. I think it's because it's a clearish day and you can actually see Derwent Water and Skidder Little Man, etc. through the gap. It's just a wonderful tree. And we couldn't come to the Derwent Water area and not talk about this last place, Cat Bells. It is a place I've been up not a huge amount of times, but there are some wonderful views to be had. I've just never managed to get up there when the light and the conditions go for that brilliant view. I'll maybe try this autumn winter, see if we can get some nice with the browns on there. But there we've got a view coming back down, just looking back up at the path that goes up to the top, with some of the fells behind. And that's the view from the top. This is, again, is not the best of images. It gives you an idea of what is possible. We're looking down, given the right conditions, the right colours. I have seen some really spectacular images from here, and it's always worth turning round and seeing what we're behind. We've got Maiden Moor sort of hiding behind there. We've got Dale Head, Hinescarth and Robinson and that. And then occasionally we get a bit of colour in the sky. So, thank you for listening. And where can you find me? I've got a website. I'm on Instagram. My main is my YouTube channel. I'm on Vero. And finally on Facebook, although I'm not particularly that active on Facebook. Right, well, hopefully you enjoyed that second half of the presentation and maybe discovered some new locations that you weren't aware of before. If you enjoyed the video and you haven't already done so, please click the thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe. It's great help to the channel and doesn't cost anything to subscribe. And what is mostly appreciated is any comments, be they positive, negative, questions, etc. And all comments are responded to. So, yes, as I mentioned at the beginning, I will put in the description below a link to the video for the first part of the presentation, for those that haven't already seen it. And what's next? As this video goes up, all being well, I'm in Scotland, and hopefully we'll get some good images and video clips in Scotland to do a number of videos on the channel about Scotland, various parts. The ultimate aim is we're going to Harris, as in Lewis and Harris, which I've never been to before, but we are going to other locations as well. So hopefully you'll be interested in that, and we'll see you on the next video.